Mass Effect 3 marked the ending for many things at Bioware. The 2012 release was the last to see Bioware's co-founders at the head of the company, as they left only a few months after Mass Effect 3's release. The 7th generation of home consoles that Mass Effect had called home was also coming to an end. By the end of 2013, the PS4 and Xbox One were now the premier home consoles on the market, and their lack of backwards compatibility at the time meant that the old trilogy of Mass Effect games was already locked to a pair of dead consoles. In the years that followed Mass Effect 3's release, Bioware would rise to glory once again with their 2014 release Dragon Age Inquisition. However, the third installment of the Dragon Age series showed cracks in Bioware's foundation. This would lead to Bioware's initial fall from grace, and with it, the story of Mass Effect Andromeda. Rumors regarding a fourth entry in the Mass Effect series began as early as 2012 before Mass Effect 3 was even released. In fact, several people had already started working on a new Mass Effect during this time, although Bioware was primarily focused on creating DLC for Mass Effect 3 and working on the upcoming installment in the Dragon Age series. This new installment wasn't being led by Bioware's team in Edmonton, however. A new team, composed of Mass Effect veterans and newcomers based out of Montreal, would take the lead. Bioware Montreal was founded in 2009 as part of EA and Bioware's expansion into the genre of RPGs and MMOs. It wasn't the first satellite studio for Bioware. In 2006, Bioware opened a new studio in Austin, Texas to develop Star Wars: The Old Republic. In addition, EA-owned Mythic Entertainment was rebranded under the Bioware name as Bioware Mythic in 2009. Alongside the main studio in Edmonton, the Bioware group of studios showed a lot of promise to deliver big games, and, more importantly, big profits. Bioware Montreal cut their teeth by assisting with the production of Mass Effect 2, crafting the game's uncharted world missions. The team worked their way up to star player with Mass Effect 3's Omega DLC. Going into 2013, Casey Hudson, director of the Mass Effect trilogy, came forward with news on Mass Effect 4, and Bioware as a whole. The main team that worked on Mass Effect was moving to a new IP, and Bioware Montreal was taking the lead on the new Mass Effect game. Hudson remained in the picture for the new Mass Effect as an executive producer, but Bioware Montreal was handling the core of the game's design, not Bioware Edmonton. From the beginning of development, the team came to some important decisions regarding the game's story. Commander Shepard and the Reapers, the protagonist and antagonist respectively of the Mass Effect trilogy, would not be the focus of the story. Early concepts for the story focused on the First Contact War, an intergalactic battle between humans and the alien race of Turians that took place in the years before the Mass Effect trilogy. Casey Hudson went on to Twitter to ask fans to see what they might want in a new Mass Effect game, offering players vague directions for the story. Players were in overwhelming agreement about one thing. They weren't interested in events taking place before the Mass Effect trilogy, they wanted a sequel, and the First Contact War plan was scrapped. The story took a different turn. Instead of having players explore the same galaxy as the Mass Effect trilogy, this new Mass Effect would take place in the Andromeda galaxy, set centuries after the events of the trilogy. This new galactic setting offered up a ton of opportunities for the developers at Bioware, and became the folly of their ambitious goals. Bioware brought on Gerard Leone, the former director of titles like Spider-Man: Web of Shadows, to lead the new Mass Effect team. Leone is credited with crafting the original idea for the game's story, where the player is sent to the Andromeda galaxy as a contingency plan against the Reaper threat. At first, the Mass Effect development team wished for players to explore large, procedurally generated worlds that they could explore with their own ship. Concepts showed the player entering a planet's atmosphere, exploring the environment to their heart's content, before leaving for the next world. The idea, not unlike 2016's No Man's Sky, was meant to show the world that Bioware could do more than just craft compelling characters, interesting stories, and deep lore. Exploration would be a key focus for the next game, but players would need more ways of traversal than just a ship. Concepts for jetpacks and a new vehicle named the Nomad quickly came into place to help make this new Mass Effect feel like a wholly unique experience when compared to past games. While it was still early in development, 2013 proved to be a fruitful year for the team at Bioware Montreal. Things were going so well that on November 7th, or in 7 Day, Bioware showed off the first looks at their next Mass Effect game. It was a short teaser, and it didn't feature any story or gameplay segments. concept art, and blurry workstations were all fans had a chance to see. Sadly for the team at Bioware Montreal, this would be the brightest days the development studio would ever see. 2014 was a major year for Bioware. In November of that year, Dragon Age Inquisition launched across the 7th and 8th generation of home consoles and PC. The roughly 3-year development cycle of Inquisition was hammered with production woes, which included 2 delays and all 3 Bioware studios working on various aspects of the title. This is in addition to all of the outsourced development performed by studios located outside of North America. Inquisition's development was the first to be completed without Bioware's co-founders. During this time, Bioware's Canadian operations remained under Aaron Flynn, a longtime employee of the developer. Under Flynn, Bioware was making a major transition to develop its future games with a new engine. Previous Bioware titles had used the developer's own engines, or they chose an already existing toolkit like Unreal Engine 3. A new generation of home consoles meant that Bioware's old tech just wasn't cutting it anymore. Eventually, Bioware settled on DICE's Frostbite 3 engine due primarily to its power. The engine was also chosen due to EA already owning the rights to it. During the development of Dragon Age Inquisition, developers at Bioware had to spend a considerable amount of time creating their own tools and assets for Frostbite 3. Unlike the first-person shooters that Frostbite 3 was built for, Bioware's RPGs required many tools that the engine was unequipped with. Most notably, Frostbite 3 struggled with animations due to so many games using a first-person's perspective with little to no prolonged character interactions or cinematic cutscenes. According to the novel Blood, Sweat, and Pixels by Jason Schreier, despite the tumultuous development of Dragon Age Inquisition, the developers held their head high. Many developers rightfully anticipated that many of the issues regarding Inquisition's development would be fixed in the polishing stage of development, and that Bioware, with its vast catalog of hits, was an untouchable game developer compared to their peers. In many ways, they were right. Dragon Age Inquisition was a massive critical and commercial success when it came out in November 2014. It won Game of the Year from the Game Awards, South by Southwest Gaming Awards, and the DICE Awards, formerly known as the Interactive Achievement Awards. This was in addition to being the best-selling game in the Dragon Age series. Sadly, for the team at Bioware Montreal, things weren't looking nearly as bright. In May of 2014, Casey Hudson left Bioware, leaving the developer with a major hole in its creative management team. Later that year, Laney stepped down as well, leaving the new Mass Effect game without a director. He was replaced by Mass Effect 3 lead writer Mac Walters, making the new Mass Effect game his first as a creative director. Bioware Montreal was also running into major issues with Frostbite 3. Procedurally generated worlds were not an easy thing to make. Making them fun was even harder. Development on the title had slowed down considerably as well. Many members of Bioware Montreal were reworked into the larger Bioware teams working on Dragon Age Inquisition. Meanwhile, at Bioware Edmonton, the team that had crafted the Mass Effect trilogy were growing concerned over the long pre-production of the new Mass Effect, leading to more internal strife. Montreal was upset that they kept losing developers, and Edmonton was upset over Montreal's lack of progress. All of this happened behind closed doors. To the gaming public at large, Bioware seemed to be getting back on its feet. After 2 controversial releases at the start of the 2010s, Inquisition was Bioware's biggest game to date, and was bringing home awards and money like past Bioware titles had. Public information on Montreal's new Mass Effect was limited during the time, but fans were given a look at more concept art on N7 Day in 2014, helping drum up the hype for Bioware's next RPG. Thankfully, fans wouldn't have to wait too much longer to get their next look at Mass Effect. During EA's press conference at E3 2015, Mass Effect Andromeda was officially revealed as the next title in the series. Fans were given a look at a whole new galaxy to explore, with the focus being drawn on the new vehicle for planetary exploration, the Nomad. The reveal was largely positive, and fans wouldn't have to wait too long. Andromeda was scheduled for release in holiday 2016 for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. News on Andromeda remained quiet after that, with only a brief teaser featuring Jennifer Hale coming out on N7 Day in late 2015. Production of Mass Effect Andromeda went into full effect in 2015, with developers from across Bioware joining in to get the game out on time. Despite its extensive pre-production phase, Andromeda wasn't meeting its internal deadlines. Unlike other giant development teams from the likes of Ubisoft or Rockstar, Bioware's worldwide development teams struggled with proper communication. After all, until the development of Dragon Age Inquisition, the teams at Bioware were largely working on their own projects, with the Edmonton studio developing Mass Effect and Dragon Age games, while the studio in Austin focused on Star Wars: The Old Republic. The end of 2015 and early 2016 saw even more departures from the Andromeda team. Among them were Chris Wynn, Senior Development Director, and Chris Schlurf, lead writer for Andromeda. Both men announced their departures via Twitter in December 2015 and February 2016 respectively. In March 2016, EA and Bioware announced that they would be delaying Andromeda until Q1 2017. The following month, things got even worse for Bioware. Leaked gameplay of Mass Effect Andromeda made its way online, showcasing new features Bioware had yet to reveal, including the use of jetpacks in the game. However, the leaked footage looked promising, but some quickly pointed to it being a fake. This was in part due to the timing of the leak, which was first reported on April 2nd. The gameplay leak of Andromeda might not have been what EA or Bioware wanted, but it still managed to get players excited about the next installment of the Mass Effect series. At E3 2016, Mass Effect Andromeda received a new trailer featuring new characters and a wide variety of environments. The protagonist of Andromeda was given a name, Ryder, and Bioware confirmed that Andromeda would not be compatible with previous Mass Effect saves. The brief trailer didn't give players too much information about Andromeda's story or gameplay, something Bioware was keeping as secretive as possible. Andromeda's final trailer of 2016 came out on N7 Day 2016, detailing the new characters and the game's story. But gameplay still wasn't being shown, and Andromeda's release date of Q1 2017 was coming closer and closer. By this time, Andromeda's procedurally generated worlds had been axed, with the team shifting focus to individually crafted worlds sometime in late 2015. At first, developers decided instead of endless worlds, Andromeda would feature roughly 30 instead, some of which would use the same tools used to create procedurally generated worlds in past versions of the game. However, this was cut back even further to only 7 worlds, limiting the scope Andromeda had originally set out to achieve. In a Kotaku article released by Jason Schreier in the months following Andromeda's release, anonymous developers commented that Andromeda's actual development didn't start until the end of 2015. With less than 18 months to complete the game, many of the game's features were either cut or downsized in order to meet the release. This had an especially harsh impact on the developers of Andromeda, who commented that, for the last few months of the game, we spent most of our effort just trying to keep it together, rather than polishing. Bioware's developers were still hopeful that they could pull it off. After all, Dragon Age Inquisition was completed under similar conditions. Years of floundering led to a months-long crunch, whose final product ended up being more popular than past entries in the series. Maybe Andromeda would be the same. These were the thoughts that persisted among the management team as Andromeda prepared for its final 3-month push. On January 4th, 2017, Mass Effect Andromeda was given a final release date in advance of the game showing at the Consumer Electronics Show. CES was the final showcase for the game leading up to its release in March. Gameplay details were finally given out at the show, and over the next 2 months, new details about Andromeda would be released to the public, including the announcement of a collector's edition and other collectibles. Mass Effect Andromeda's official release date was set for March 21st in North America, but EA had other plans in mind. In an attempt to bolster their EA Access program, Mass Effect Andromeda was given a 10-hour time trial through the program. The trial launched on March 16th, 5 days before the release of the rest of the game. Players quickly found out, however, that Andromeda was not of the same standard as past Bioware works. While 10 hours is hardly enough time to properly critique something as massive as Andromeda, players quickly began sharing images and videos of the game's character animations. The poor qualities of these animations turned into memes and were shared across the internet, leading early impressions to be poor. Reviews for Andromeda wouldn't start coming out until a few days later, but for many it was already too late. Mass Effect Andromeda released on March 21st, 2017, with PAL Territories receiving the game 2 days later on the 23rd. Critical reception was mixed. Many praised the game's combat and beautiful worlds, but lambasted the various technical issues that plagued the game. Not even the game's narrative and characters could save the title, as many critics made note that the story was not of the same level as past entries. Sales suffered from the initial response. Andromeda managed to be the second best physical launch in the Mass Effect series, only being beaten by Mass Effect 3, but digital sales were substantially lower. EA has not commented on the exact numbers of Andromeda as of 2021, and there are no solid numbers on how many units the game sold. The blowback from Andromeda was immense. Similarly to how they handled Mass Effect 3's controversial ending, Bioware made a pledge in the days following release that they would address player concerns with the game's technical issues. This came in addition to new romance options for the male playable character and additional features in the character creator at the beginning of the game. In the months following Andromeda's release, rumors began floating that EA was putting the Mass Effect series on ice following the cool reception Andromeda had received. In June of 2017, a previously mentioned expose on the development of Andromeda showed the world just how chaotic things had been at Bioware over the past 5 years. In July, Aaron Flynn stepped down as general manager of Bioware Canada, ending his 17-year career with the developer. He was replaced by Casey Hudson, who returned to Bioware after a short stint at Microsoft. In August, EA announced that Bioware Montreal would be absorbed by EA's Motive studio that was also located in the city. In the years since, Motive developed Star Wars Squadrons, and it was released in late 2020. Mass Effect Andromeda continued to receive patches and new DLC until August of 2017. That month, Bioware announced that Andromeda's single-player updates were coming to an end, although the game's multiplayer features would still receive some updates. Since Andromeda's release in 2017, the Mass Effect series as a whole has been on hiatus. Outside of the remastered Legendary Edition that launched in May 2021, no new Mass Effect games have been released or announced. A small teaser for a new Mass Effect game was released in late 2020, but no details about the game have been released to the public. Andromeda itself failed to leave much of an impact. It failed to meet expectations compared to its predecessors, and Bioware failed to receive any recognition for the release during the End of the Year awards for 2017. One of the sole exceptions being Giant Bomb's Worst Game That We Played award. Bioware's follow-up to Andromeda, Anthem, was met with similar mixed reception at the time of release. In the years that have followed Anthem's release, Bioware seems to have focused its efforts on re-establishing itself as a premier game studio once again, but time will tell if the latter half of the 2010s was a fluke or just the beginning of a dark future for the once legendary developer. Personally, I have hope that they'll be able to right the ship. The Legendary Edition of the Mass Effect trilogy is the perfect first step at earning the trust of fans once again, and I personally can't wait to see what Bioware has in store for us with the next entry in this fantastic series. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and share the video on your favorite social media sites. In the comments below, I want to know your thoughts on Mass Effect Andromeda. Have you played it and did you enjoy it? If you would like to know more about the development of Mass Effect Andromeda, I've included a link to Jason Schreier's article detailing the game's chaotic development. The article in question and Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, are fantastic reads, and I highly recommend them if you enjoy the same sort of content that you see on this channel. And once again, thank you for watching.